Hello and welcome to another creative coding video. Today we're going to look at the topic of colour and mixing our own colours. Now colour is quite a big topic, so we are going to come back to it again in future. So today we're going to make a start on a different way of choosing colours. Now what we've been doing so far is choosing colours from a list. Let's go back to some code that we are quite familiar with. So I'm logged into Open Processing as usual, have my simple setup, and I've made sure that my simple JS library is on. And I have two instructions. I have fill red, which we know picks red as the fill colour, and I'm drawing a circle in the middle of the canvas. And if I run the code, we're not surprised that there's a red circle in the middle of the canvas. Great, so we've done all that many times before. We can change the colour to yellow and yellow, and so on and so on. Pink's another option. Pink. Yeah. Now, we've been picking colours from a list. There's quite a lot of colours on that list, so the choice is quite good. We've got colours as specific as lemon chiffon, lawn green, light pink, light salmon, lime, rosy brown, white smoke, and so on and so on. So there's quite a lot there, but it might be that actually the colour we really want isn't on there, and we want to more precisely mix our own colour. Now, if you use paints or inks or other kinds of things like pencils, you can sometimes get the colour you want by combining colours, and it takes practice to kind of be able to do that, but it's possible. Now, can we do that on our computer? Can we get the exact colour we want by mixing colours in some way? Because if the colour's not on this long list, we might feel we're not going to be happy. Well, let's have a think. Have we done this before? Well, yeah. Many of us have used programs that allow us to edit photos, or painting programs, and they often have a colour picker. So I'm going to show a painting program that I sometimes use, and I've got a paintbrush selected, and I've got yellow picked, so I draw yellow strokes like that, and I can choose a different colour, let's say kind of a light blue, or I might choose a greeny colour. Now, what do we notice up there? There's some sliders that change as we pick different colours. Can you see? And they are labelled RGB, and there's some numbers there as well. What does all that mean? Well, the RGB stands for red, green, blue, and the numbers are the amount, so I can directly pick a colour by moving those sliders from 0 all the way up to the top, and the highest value is 255. Can you see the colour changing there? So that's kind of a dark pink, and if I change that, get quite a light colour, and if I remove the blue down, I get a different colour being picked. Oops, I lost me here. What happens if I just have red and turn all the other colours down? So red is all the way 0, blue's all the way down to 0, but green, not red, green is all the way to the top. Well, I've got a green colour. If I turn green down and there's nothing on, I get black. It's almost like the absence of colour. If I turn red up, I get a red colour. and if I mix two, red and green, I get a yellow. So this is telling us that red and green, when mixed together, make yellow. Well, it certainly works here, but you might not have expected red and green to make yellow. Well, let's talk about that. You can skip this part if you want. You don't have to know why that happens. But if you're interested, I think the explanation is interesting. So, when we mix light, if we had torches, for example, we get a different way of mixing colours than if we mixed paint. So I'm showing some mixing paint here, and as I mix paint, the more I mix different colours together, the darker the result gets. Whereas if I mixed light, the more I mix things together, the lighter the colour becomes. Well, that's physics basically. That's how nature works. And the way to think about it is, if we think about white light, the light that comes from the sun, sometimes it gets split up into the different colours that are mixed to make it. So a prism or a raindrop can make a rainbow. And what's happening there is that the white light is being split into the different colours that made it. So that all the colours in the rainbow, when mixed together, make white light. So let's say that again. All those different colours mixed together make white. That's why mixing different colours with light moves closer and closer towards white. So here, if I've mixed red, green and blue, I get white. But if I leave out blue, mix just red and green, I get yellow. What happens with ink or pigment, which isn't light, is that the way colours are perceived is what we see is the colour that's reflected off the surface of something that has pigment on it. And pigment absorbs light. So white light from the sun, for example, will hit a piece of paper or a cloth, and if it has pigment, some of those colours that mix together to make white light are not reflected. They are absorbed. So some of those rainbow colours don't come back into our eyes. They are absorbed by the pigment, and the remainder are what we see, which is what gives something colour. So you can see that the more different kinds of pigment we have, we're going to get less and less light reflected back to us, which is why it tends to get darker as we mix pigment and paint. So that's the explanation. You don't need to know that, but it is interesting. The other thing that is worth knowing is that historically, computer displays, your television, your laptop screen, your smartphone screen, your tablet screen have been made of tiny little red, green and blue lights, and turning them on and off to various degrees is what creates the colours that we see. And that's been happening for decades, and it's the same reason why in many paint programs we have what seems like a counterintuitive way of mixing colours with red, green and blue. I guess if I'm honest, that probably wouldn't be the way I would mix colours, but we'll look at that again in another video in future, because I think there is a nicer way. But for now, it's worth understanding where this red, green, blue colour model comes from. Anyway, let's get mixing. So you can use your favourite colour mixer in your favourite painting program, or use this website. I'll post the link in the YouTube description. And here we can use those sliders again to pick a colour. So I'm moving the green up and down now, making a nice sort of a pink there. Can I get it lighter, darker? That's the sort of pink I want. And this one has 254 of red, 175 of green, and 186 of blue. There they are. And what I can do is I can copy that and use it in my code. Can I do that? Well, I've got fill. Well, I had fill red before, didn't I? And that gave me a red circle. How can I use those 3 red, green and blue numbers, those levels? Well, it turns out I can. I can just give the fill instruction 3 numbers which are red, green and blue. And remember, the numbers go from 0 all the way up to 255 maximum. So they can't be more than 255. Now you might be thinking, well, why that? Why 255? Wouldn't it have made sense to go from 0 to 1 as a fraction, or 0 to 100 as a percentage? We could do that. That does make sense. But again, it's just an accident of history that the numbers went from 0 to 255. And if you're really interested in why 255, it's the maximum number that 1 byte of memory in computer systems can hold. So 1 byte could store a number from 0 to 255, which is where that comes from. But you don't need to know that. So we've put those numbers in, and if we run the code, we should get that nice pink that we chose. Let's try it. Yep, that worked. Let's try another colour. Let's see if I can get a nice sky kind of blue. And that's kind of a grey. Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, that's it. So that's 81 red, 158 green, 229 blue. And I'll use that in my fill instruction. I'll just replace that there. 81, 158, 229. That should be that lovely shade of blue. Nice, that works. So what have we done? Let's just recap. We were picking colours using names, and that's fine, and there's lots of colours to choose from. There's certainly no shortage there. But if we really were wanting a very specific shade of colour, specific colour that we really had in mind, we can mix colours much more precisely and pick the one we want. It might not have been on the list, so we can mix our own colours like this. And we use these red, green and blue levels to define a colour. It's the amount of red, green and blue light that's mixed to make the colour on our displays. So have a go yourselves, have a play. It's worth getting a little bit of a feel for what combinations make what colours. Don't worry if it's not intuitive. So if I said I want a yellow, well, it's not obvious what amount of red, green and blue makes yellow. You might get to know it after a while, but it's not intuitive and it's nothing to worry about. In fact, in the future we're going to look at a different way of mixing colours that is more intuitive. But because red, green and blue is a very common way of picking colours, it makes sense for us to cover it today. So let's take the next step. Now in code, whenever we have numbers, we can have fun. We can replace the numbers with random numbers. We can get computers to choose a number. So let's say instead of picking a colour, I want the computer to pick one. I might ask it to pick one at random. So I might say pick a red level at random. So red goes from 0 to 255. And that would be used in the fill instruction. Let's do the same for the green and blue parts. red, green, blue. What's going to happen? Let's talk through that code again. I'm picking a random number between 0 and 255, which are the minimum and maximum levels of light for red. I'm doing that again for green, doing that again for blue. And then I'm going to mix my color out of those random amounts of red, green and blue light. So I should get a random color being mixed. Let's try it. Oh, it's kind of an interesting brown. Try it again. Kind of a muddy red. Browny again. Dark green. Purple. Oh, that's quite a bright purple. So you can see, oh, that is bright, isn't it? Quite a bright green. That's a nice blue, and so on. So you can see that we're getting random colours because we're mixing random amounts of red, green and blue light. That's great. That is fantastic. Have a go yourselves. It is quite fun to do this. I'm going to take this code and make a function out of it. So those circles remind me of balloons. So I'm going to write a function called balloon. Not ballon, balloon. I think ballon might be French. Going to make the circles a bit smaller, and I'm going to also place them randomly on the screen. So I'm going to use random numbers to pick their location. Going to keep them away from the edge of the canvas. We've done that in previous videos, so you can have a look there for an explanation. Right, so let's talk about what we've just done here. We're picking X and Y at random, and we're going to use that for the location of our balloon. We're picking random amounts of red, green and blue and using that to mix a colour, which hopefully is random. And if we call our new function once, maybe twice, why not 3 times? We should get 3 balloons with different colours. Great. I'm going to make their outline stroke a little bit thinner. So stroke weight is the instruction for picking how thick the outline of the shape is. The default here is 2, so I'm going to make it thinner to 1. There we go. That's a nice combination. Now, the nice thing about functions, and we've seen this before, is that we can repeat them lots of times. Let's say 50. So we're going to call balloon 50 times, so we should get 50 balloons. Hey, that's kind of cool. So with just a little bit of code, we've got a picture made up of 50 balloons, and they've all got really interesting different colours, and we've been mixing them using the power of random numbers. That's kind of nice, isn't it? Yeah, I like that. That is rather nice. Let's run that again. See what kind of compositions emerge. Oh, that's a nice one. Now we could stop there, but I'm going to do something more. Again, it comes from the fact that we're now using numbers to pick colours. So now I'm going to do something a little bit not unusual, maybe fun's the best word. Let's say I don't pick a random number for the red and green parts of the colour mixing. I do that for blue, but for red and green I'm going to use the height on the canvas, so the Y value. Don't divide that by 2, and the reason is that Y will go from 100 to 500, and our colours are mixed with levels that go from 0 to 255. So if I divide Y by 2, it could be anywhere from 50 to 250, which is in the range that's acceptable for a colour level. So let's just say what's happened here again. I'm drawing a circle at X, Y and a size 25. X and Y are picked randomly. Yep, that makes sense. I'm mixing a colour from red, green and blue lights. Blue is a random number, 0 to 255. But the red and the green parts are not entirely random. They are in fact the same random number that was picked for the height, how up and down, the vertical coordinate on the canvas. What will that do? Well, it'll still be random, but if the circle is drawn higher up the canvas, that will influence the amount of red and green in the colour. And if the balloon is further down the canvas, that too will have an influence on the colour that's picked. Intriguing. Let's see what will happen. Let's run the code. That is nice. Can you see? The further up the canvas the balloons are, the more bluey and dark greeny they are, and the further down, the more light and yellow and whiter they are. Let's increase the number of balloons. Let's say we've got 100 of them. Let's run that again. Yeah, that is nice, isn't it? That's a really nice way of controlling how we mix the colours. Lovely, I like that. And again. Very nice. Really interesting. So I think I'll stop there. There's lots of fun you can have, but I would really encourage you to have a go. Certainly, the first thing you should do is find a colour mixer and mix your own colours and see if you can use them in your own code. But the more interesting thing you can do is have a play with your own code in your own way of picking the red, green and blue lights, the amount of light that is mixed to make a colour. You can use random numbers, you can link it to where on the canvas the colour is being drawn, or you can think of something else entirely. So the possibilities are actually huge, and it's one of the great things you can do with creative coding is have a lot of fun with picking colours. As always, pure randomness can get a little bit boring after a while, so applying interesting constraints like this makes for much more interesting works of art being created. So have a go yourselves, and we'll see you next time. And I think I will also create another short video just to go more slowly over the red, green and blue model of mixing colours if this was a little bit too fast. Anyway, have fun. See you next time. Bye.